morning. My name is Ryan Winkler. I'm the Minnesota House Majority Leader, and I'm excited here today to talk about the Freedom to Drive bill, driver's license for all. Before 2003, Minnesota didn't care whether you were documented or undocumented when you went to apply for a driver's license. If you could pass the test and buy insurance, you could be on the road. That changed 16 years ago, and since that time, immigrants in Minnesota have been facing a lot more hardship than otherwise is necessary. People have trouble getting to work, taking care of family, and doing the things that Minnesotans expect to be able to do on a daily basis. Make no mistake, immigrants, whether they are documented or undocumented, are Minnesotans. They are part of the fabric of our communities. They belong here. They contribute to our economy. They contribute to our communities. And it's time that we help take away the shadow of not having a driver's license and take back the notion in Minnesota that everybody has dignity, everybody has a place here, and that everyone matters. We were, and we may still be joined by Representative Rod Hamilton, Republican House member, who had a medical appointment this morning, so he may or may not be able to make it. And while we wait, we're going to hear first from Minnesota milk producer Tom Sedgman.
Good morning. My name is Tom Sedgman. I'm a dairy farmer. My wife and I own and operate a dairy farm in Sauk Center of 400 cows. It's a family farm. Central Minnesota has a diversified agricultural economy consisting of crop, poultry, and livestock production. We have processing plants that process chickens, turkeys, beef, and milk also into primarily cheese in our area. And also we have agricultural manufacturing of farm equipment in central Minnesota. Like many rural communities in Minnesota, we have a shortage of labor. Many jobs that require this labor require labor of high skill, and many of the jobs are entry-level positions. In central Minnesota, where many of our employers depend on immigrant labor for these entry-level positions. We want our families and our employees to be safe on the roads, and we attain this through proper driver training passages of those drivers training. We attain this through opportunity and expectation that everyone passes these tests. Without opportunity, expectations cannot be achieved. Thank you.
And next, Father Joseph Williams.
Good morning. I am Father Joseph Williams, pastor of St. Stephen's Catholic Church in Minneapolis. And I'm speaking here today on behalf of the Minnesota Catholic Conference. I'm honored to join my voice to these other voices in speaking out in support of the driver's license for all legislation. This is an issue that hits close to home for me, as I've had the privilege for over 10 years to serve the Latino community. Some of the people whom I pastor don't have their papers, but all of them bear the image and likeness of God. And I've discovered over these years that they love this great country as much as I do. And they're working hard, often in humble circumstances, to make it prosperous. Numerous immigrant parents, in fact, in my church, have gifted to our country children who serve in the armed forces. And I can tell you that as I am speaking now, there's a mother witnessing her son swear into the United States Marines Corps. Yet this mother and many of these same parents are deprived of some of the basic things they need to live peacefully among us. While appreciated by the business owners and farmers who are here today, their work is not always appreciated by all. And because of this, many of these good people live, as the representative said, under a cloud of fear. Providing driver's license for all who live and work and worship in this state would go a long way to lift that cloud. The Catholic bishops of Minnesota feel this is a moral imperative and one that is long overdue. May God inspire our legislators to feel the same. Thank you.
Oh, good morning. Hi there. My name is John Lazoya. I am a senior commander with the St. Paul Police Department, Community Engagement Division. You know, our police department is very supportive of this bill. The St. Paul Police Department is committing to protecting the peace and maintaining public safety through trusted service and respect. Under our Community First Public Safety Initiative, we are working to reduce crime by building stronger relationships between our officers and members of our community. HF 1500 will directly support these efforts by affording every Minnesotan the opportunity to obtain a driver's license and engage in our economic and community in a safety and meaningful way. Unlicensed drivers present a danger, not to only themselves, but also to us who drive, walk, bike, and take transit to carry out daily activities. This law will help ensure the individuals who want and need to drive will have to learn the rules of the road, become certified to operate vehicles. Also, since all licensed drivers in Minnesota are required to carry insurance, we can decrease the number of incidents of collisions where one or more of the drivers is uninsured. Most importantly, we know that there are important public safety benefits to having licensed drivers. Licensed drivers are less likely to leave the scene of an accident before officers arrive. We know that community members are able to confidently identify themselves to officers and more likely cooperate with criminal investigations. Studies have shown that the states with universal driver's license saw its rates of uninsured drivers drop. HF 1500 would dramatically help increase the public safety of our community and our roads. In closing, I want to thank the Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, and Chief Bill Arthur Ryan Winkler, and all the co-authors. We recognize your leadership and appreciate the hard work that's been put into this bill. And believe me when I say, as a police officer of over 40 years, this will really help our community in so many ways that it's just hard to explain. Thank you very much.
Buenos días. My name is Jovita. I'm a co-founder of Minnesota Immigrant Movement, a nonprofit organization founded by immigrants to serve the Latinos community. In 2007, my 9 and 11 years old children were on the bus when the I-35W bridge collapsed. My kids were seriously injured on the accident and require medical, emotional, and physical therapy treatments for years. I was forced to make the difficult decision to drive in order to take them to their many medical appointments. Later, when I experienced domestic violence, I had to drive without driver license, take the kids to school, to work, to buy groceries, and to their after-school activities. Being able to drive with license allowed me to become independent and not to be forced to stay and endure domestic violence anymore. This freedom to drive permitted me to become involved on community services and organizing, like exactly I'm doing right now. My personal story is one of hundreds of stories of struggle. In closing, being able to drive allows me to stand here today voicing the needs of all the brave people who are here and up there outside that on daily basis overcome their fears in order to provide for their families. Minnesota wants greater roads, moving things forward with driver's license for all. Thank you.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Angeline Roberts. I live in Worthington, Minnesota. I work at the JBS plant where I am proud member of the union of UFC W663. I work in the plant where majority of the employees are immigrants. We work hard to build better life for ourselves and our family. We perform difficult tasks and dangerous work. In fact, meat packaging is one of the most dangerous industries to work in. Everyone deserves to go to work safe, and everyone deserves to go to work safe. And I'm glad I have the union contacts and the protection to protect me on my job. Everyone also deserves to be safe going to work and out of work. In the past winter, I saw some of my coworkers walking in the snow to work. We had minus 50-degree wind chill this winter, plus record snowfall. Our planning is on the edge of the time. No one should have to put their life on at risk. The element of because of lack of access of driver license. I'm a Liberian. Liberians and me and all African immigrants pay at least $200 million in taxes, and with an income of at least $2 billion, we have contributed to the growth and the economics of Minnesota. Imagine how much more we can contribute if undocumented Black other immigrants have access to driver's license, to drive job everywhere in the state. Just like I want to be safe at work, just how I want to be safe at work, I want to be safe going to work and out of work. I want my other co-workers and community providing driver license access is the right choice for Minnesota. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Terry Tao. I'm a community advocate and I train leaders. I'm here to share that Asian Pacific Islanders are actually the fastest growing undocumented population in the United States. It's estimated 1 out of every 7 Asian Pacific Islander immigrants are actually undocumented. So our community needs driver's licenses to pick up our kids from school, to take our elders to doctor's appointments, to go to the store to get the appropriate cultural groceries for our families, and just to drive for leisure. When we buy cars and insurance and take them to get fixed, we contribute to the greater Minnesota economy. Having driver's licenses restored to undocumented immigrants is a moral and economic imperative. Thank you very much.
These are just a few of a small and dynamic part of a very large and dynamic coalition. This multiracial, multi-sector, multi-ethnic, interfaith coalition has worked hard to bring this bill forward today. I feel very fortunate to stand in a place where Karen Clark and Representative Gomez has been a leader, and where Carlos Mariani has led on this issue. This has been ongoing for 16 years. The organizers who have been bringing this forward know that it's time to pass this bill, and that's why we are doing it today. And we're ready for any questions.
I have a question for you. Angeline from Liberia. Are you here on DED status?
I'm not an undocumented immigrant. I'm not an undocumented immigrant. I have papers, but I have other relatives and friends who don't have papers, so that's the reason I'm here.
Are those who are here on DED status able to get driver's licenses?
No.
Okay, I didn't understand that.
Leader Winkler, what happens after today with this issue?
Well, this bill will pass the House today. It's also included in our transportation omnibus bill. As it is amended today, we will update the bill, or the portions of the bill that are in the transportation bill, and we intend to bring this to end of session negotiations like so many other issues. And we're including it in omnibus bills because while we're continuing to work with senators on this issue, we have not yet seen the bill move forward. And so we are trying to bring it to all the way to the end at the end of session if that's what it takes.
With one of these licenses, they're called non-compliant. I mean, doesn't that turn into a red flag? for law enforcement if they stop somebody who's got one?
So just to be clear, we have three kinds of licenses in Minnesota today. We have Real ID, and we have an enhanced driver's license. The regular Class D license that is not either Real ID or enhanced is called non-compliant. So it's non-compliant in the sense of not being one of those other two, not compliant with Real ID, isn't non-compliant in the sense of being only for undocumented immigrants. So the difference really in this bill is that if you don't have to have prove your lawful status in the United States in order to get a regular Class D driver's license in Minnesota. So nobody will be singled out.
So does anybody have non-compliant driver's licenses? Who would have them as we move? But you have one because you haven't yet renewed yours for Real ID. I mean,
It's an option, actually. When I could go in, I decided not to go through the extra steps to get the Real ID because I have a passport. And so a passport and a Minnesota ID is really all you need.
okay.
Mr. Leader, and I understand, what you said, that you want to take this to the end of session. But how can you, what's happening on the national level, there's going to be really heated objections to this, particularly on the Senate side. Are you prepared to jeopardize a budget session for this issue?
Bill, the national immigration system is a disaster, and I think everybody knows that. It doesn't work for immigrants, whether documented or undocumented. It doesn't work for employers. It doesn't work for Minnesotans or Americans who are concerned about safety and security. We can't address that, and what we are trying to do in this bill is focus in on the narrow fact that there are a lot of people in Minnesota who don't have access to a driver's license now, and that we shouldn't wait for the national government to solve the big problem before we take steps to make people's lives more bearable and make our economy work and make our roads safer. So we're trying to separate out those national concerns with what we can do in Minnesota, and so far a lot of Republicans are very open to that. It's not necessarily an easy conversation for them to have with their base, but a lot of them are willing to do it, and that's also why we've been working very carefully and closely with them to accommodate their concerns. There are a number of amendments that are posted on the bill today, for example, that we will be accepting.
I mean, I understand that you're wanting to separate the issues, okay, the national from the state, but are you going to keep it separate from end of session budget negotiations, or are you willing to take it to the point where I understand this agenda is important to you folks, but will you go so far as to say we're not going to wrap up this session from a budget standpoint?
We are not going to issue any ultimatums on any issue going into the end of this session, period.
Can I ask Representative Gomez a question?
Certainly.
Want me to hold your sign?
Sure, thanks.
Any chance this is a vehicle, no pun intended, for the municipal ID work that you've been doing for Minneapolis's municipal ID?
This is a separate issue from municipal IDs. Minneapolis and Northfield have both adopted policies that allow people to, that establish municipal IDs for which you would not have to prove lawful status. But, that is a separate issue from this non-compliant license.
But you couldn't maybe hook your bill onto this bill and because there is some language in this bill talking about not sharing information with immigration authorities, which is one of the interests that Minneapolis and Northfield have for their municipal IDs.
Yeah, the data practices provisions of this bill only apply to this license that we're talking about today.
Majority Leader Winkler, I seem to remember the Minnesota Chamber during the Real ID debate last year arguing in favor of this kind of legislation, and yet even then Republican members were staunchly against it. How do you explain that disconnect?
Well, the Minnesota Chamber is strongly in favor of this bill, and in fact, we'll have a letter on the floor of the House today signed by Hospitality Minnesota, milk producers, the Agri-Growth Council. There is very strong business, cooperative networks. There's very strong business and agricultural business support for this bill today. I think the fact that that support is there makes a difference for Republicans. And so we are going to continue to do the best work we possibly can to focus in on the public safety benefits, the economic benefits, and the basic moral dignity of this bill, and try to find as much space as possible for Republicans to support it.
Time for one more question?
Yeah, Leader, I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about guns.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. I guess I have the same question about that as I do about this particular bill, and that is, are you going to take the gun debate to the end of session negotiations? Because that's ultimately, I think, where it would have to end up for you to get any traction with the Senate on this.
Well, absolutely. I think Majority Leader Winkler said it very well, that we're not issuing ultimatums. We're not laying down red lines. If you lay down a bunch of red lines, it makes it harder to find the green lines later for an agreement. But this is an issue that's very important to Minnesotans, as is gun violence prevention. And I think we have a trust with the voters to carry their desires forward as aggressively as we can until the last minute of session. So until the session adjourns, sine die, the issues that are important to us as DFLers, but more importantly, the issues that are important to Minnesotans, we will be fighting for those issues right up until the end.
Would you mind previewing for us next week as we get up to the third deadline? Some of us need to feed the maw, as it were, for the weekend.
Sure, I know it's a little bit more difficult, I think it is, at least that's my perception, for the media to cover the committee action, because, you have multiple hearings on the same issue over and over. And omnibus budget bill construction is not really a fun thing to cover, because it requires hours and hours of dedication in committee. And we don't generally share the snack cart with the media. So I would expect that next week is a lot of long hours in committee, getting the state's proposed $50 billion budget ready for House floor action. My understanding is the same work is being done in the Senate, although at a much slower pace. But next week would be the week that we get ready to have these discussions on the House and Senate floor.
I follow on this, if possible. GOP members in that committee last night, around midnight, were saying that the reason that this bill, or these two bills were tucked into the omnibus, is because you don't have the votes on the floor to pass it. What do you say to that?
No, we addressed that yesterday. 68 votes is 68 votes, and whether they're standalone or they're in a budget bill, it's the support that we need to pass the measures. This is, yes, this is a normal part of the legislative session. And while we're changing some things that were dysfunctional from before, like an omnibus prime that has environment, transportation, and health and human services, we're not changing everything about the way the legislature works. And the way the legislature works is we have conversations on topics like this right up until the end of session. I'm sure there'll be a large variety of policy items coming forward from the Senate bills, Senate budget bills, and we'll all be talking about those from now until May 20th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.